In York, we're a small unitary authority with around 1,800 children born each year. Our disadvantaged population, as defined by eligibility for pupil premium, stands at around 16% across the city. So slightly lower than national averages. But what we've got is a long-standing and persistent gap between disadvantaged children and their peers, and that starts really early on. In terms of specifics around speech-language communication, there's really strong evidence that suggests that focusing on children's early communication language skills is a really sensible place to start. So the problem that we were seeking to solve in the use of WellComm was the one of under-identification. So we know that national prevalence estimates of speech-language communication needs range from somewhere between 7 and 14%, but only just over 2% of children are identified as having speech-language communication needs on the National SEND Register. So our hypothesis was that this under-identification issue was being replicated locally in York. All of our decision-making around the Early Talk for York programme has been evidence-informed. So taking an approach where we look at what research evidence tells us, coupled with our deep knowledge and understanding of our local area. So applying research evidence to our local context. And part of our original choice for WellComm was looking at what was working well in the city already. So we wanted to take a strengths-based approach to our work and not fall into that trap that we see so often with development work, where we choose new and exciting things that ultimately aren't compatible or sustainable. And we had some really great examples of WellComm being used effectively as a tool within the system, and wanted to capitalise upon that. We also knew we wanted a tool that both helped with identification of need, but was also ethical. So we knew that if we identified needs, then we needed to have an immediate and accessible response, which is where the big book of ideas really comes in. In terms of the impact we've seen so far, within the original pilot area of Early Talk for York, we've seen a rise in identification of just less than 10%. And if we were to replicate that out across the city, it's likely that we're talking about hundreds of children, 0 to 5, whose needs we aren't quite identifying. What's really important for us, though, is the way that we're using it. So it's not just about the outcome of the screen. It's about the professional judgment, the partnership work with families, and our partnership across other sources and other services that then builds a proportionate response. So it's not about increasing demand on specialist services. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about early intervention to reduce demand on specialist services and make sure that children get the support that they need when they need it. This year, we're really starting to see the benefits of our work. So the pilot area of Early Talk for York is showing some really promising outcomes in the communication language strands of the early years foundation stage profile across the whole cohort of children when compared to our control group, but particularly for our most vulnerable children, and that's even during the pandemic period. So it gives us a level of confidence moving forward.